Hi, how are you? This is Daniel Rezendi, and today we're going to have an international look on how different countries deal with debt. And this is the photo of the day. It's me just buying things in KL. I spent so much money. I bought the Max that I'm shooting this with. I bought my AirPods. I bought a bunch of clothes. So since this episode is about debt, I thought it was quite fitting. Now, we're going to go through a bunch of different groups of countries and how they deal with debt. The first group, which is the most problematic and the most iconic, is the zombies. And that's Italy, Japan, and Greece. Greece is to a lesser extent. Italy and Japan, they're a little worse. They have low fertility, high median age, and these countries that no real hope of dealing with that, they just smile and wave like the picture. If you see their economic growth in the last 10 to 30 years, it's been negligible. People don't have kids anymore. And if you take, for example, Rome's pyramid, uh, just age pyramid, you're going to see that there's a lot of people between 45 and 55, and those people are going to be retired, literally all of them, within the next 20 to 25 years. And there's just nobody to replace them at the bottom. And unless there's some really transformative technology, unless you get some real strong economic growth, young people are just going to be crippled by the amount of pension payments that they're going to have to provide through the government. And obviously, the countries, well, they don't have kids. They don't really have that much immigration compared to like some other developed countries. Japan has a fairly low level of immigration. Greece and Italy, it's like mild, but it's not like the highest if you compare it to like Germany, the UK, France, etc. And their fertility rates are pretty much the lowest in the world. Some other Southern European countries they have kind of a similar problem, like Spain and Portugal. It's just a little less. But yeah, they don't really have like politicians can say that, so they won't say it. But realistically, uh, you know that they can't really solve the problem. Japan has 200% of a debt to GDP ratio. It has no forecast of having like gigantic economic growth in the near future. It has no population gain, quite the opposite. Its population is just declining. Some other countries like Korea, it doesn't have like that much of a debt problem, but it still has a population problem. And those countries are really going to struggle. The second group is the deniers. This is mostly the US, the UK, and France. They won World War II, and so they have a main character syndrome. They can't imagine a world where they're not strong and relevant economically. And so they just spend all the money that they can, and they don't really care about the future because they think we own the US dollar, we own the Great British pound, we have nuclear power. And that's all very relevant and it helps them. But the idea that you can just indefinitely spend more than you make is insane. And as people and other institutions slowly creep into the fact that you're not that stable, your debt servicing cost increases, which just increases your debt even more. And I guess this graphic about the US debt just shows it all, doesn't it? So these countries are better than the zombies because, well, they have stronger economies, they have higher fertility rates, they have higher immigration. Um, so they have a better economic output than the other three, and they have more room to leverage what they have. But if they just keep going in this direction, they're just going to end up exactly like the zombies, exactly like the first group. The third group is the migration dependent countries. This is mostly Canada and Australia, New Zealand to a lesser extent, though every country is in the West is sort of migration dependent by now because they just need that population growth to keep uh, uh, debt to GDP ratio to from just going too high. Canada has 22% foreign-born population. Australia has 29 to 30%. So Australia has even higher foreign-born population than Canada. And the way it works is if you import enough people, uh, even if your economy isn't actually growing, it's going to seem like it's growing because more people are working, more there's more total economic output, but per capita, it's actually falling. So in Australia, there's a term that they coined, which is a per capita recession, which is every year the economy grows, but it doesn't grow enough uh, to justify all the people coming in, and so it's actually slowly falling. Uh, this is a big problem, but obviously people keep importing more and more people because these governments keep importing more and more people because that's the only way that they can spend as much as they're spending. That's just by having more and more taxpayers. And uh, Australia is in a slightly better position than Canada because, well, it caps its immigration more. So there's in terms of proportionally, there's less people moving to Australia right now than there are to Canada. Australia also has a much lower debt level than Canada. Canada is already near or over 100%. Australia is around like 40%, so it's much, much better. It has just better institutions. It has a smaller population, which means it can uh, just navigate the situation better. But both countries have a very, very problematic uh, relationship with migration because immigration is meant to be uh, constant, but also controlled and reasonable, and people are meant to integrate. And like you can't keep integration if every generation 50% of the people are not born in the country. There's nothing for them to integrate into. That's the problem really. And uh, their situation, Canada, Australia, especially Australia, it's definitely better than all the countries that we've talked about previously. It's just not good. And if governments were honest, they would limit migration, they would limit spending, and their GDP per capita would actually grow, which is what matters really. And then there's the role models. Like I don't want to put on a socialist um hat here, but the truth is, if you want to spend money, you need to tax the people you're gonna spend the money on. Like that's the only way. You- what is the other option? And I think the three best examples are European countries, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Switzerland. Those three. Switzerland provides less services, and so it taxes less. It's a low tax country by pretty much every objective standard. If you're average Swiss, you're going to pay lower taxes than most average workers or people in other developed countries. In Denmark, you pay a lot of taxes. In the Netherlands, you also pay a lot of taxes. You get more in return. But those are actually reasonable social models because what they claim is we tax proportionally to what we provide, and we have strict debt controls, and they really, really do. Switzerland, if they run a deficit, they have to run a surplus next year to compensate for it. So it's a very strict program, and that's how it should work. That's how it should work. So those are definitely our role models. And then one less model that we have to talk about is the leprechaun, which is Ireland. And Ireland has a very unique model because it looks like it's sustainable. Like people will talk about Ireland, oh, it's a low tax country. Oh, it's got extremely high GDP per capita. But it's not really true. Like, first of all, Ireland is not low tax. Ireland is low tax very specifically and only for giant multinationals. It's a high tax, high expenditure country for everybody else. It has a high VAT, it has a high estate tax, high income tax, high social security tax, high dividend and capital gains tax. It's just high taxation across the board, and the average people really feel it. Obviously, if you're really low in the income bracket, you actually don't get taxed much in terms of at least income tax. But other than that, it's just a high tax country like any other European country. And even though its debt to GDP ratio is really low, it was really high 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because its GDP isn't really real and it's so dependent on everything else. Uh, if two or three companies decide to leave Ireland, a significant portion of its tax revenue and jobs will just disappear. And with more conflict in trade relationships with the EU or with the US, and just with multinational companies just making decisions that are better for them, Ireland is actually in a much more vulnerable position than you would assume from just looking at stats, let's say. Uh, and so it is not low taxed, and it's not low tax, and it's actually not that fiscally stable, but everyone thinks they are. That's what's amazing. Like they just give this perception, and good on them. I'm moving to Ireland actually tomorrow. I'm going today, but I'm literally moving to Ireland tomorrow, and the rental crisis in Dublin is just insane. I just wanted to say that. But it's definitely got its problems. It's better because it's a small country. It's better than a lot of the European countries. But like I said, it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to some very small number of key decision makers, namely Apple, Google, the US government, and the EU. Like that's it pretty much, and a few other big companies. But yeah, if you had to wrap it up, different countries they deal with that in vastly different manners, but populations have to accept that handouts come with costs. That is welfare, services, education, healthcare. They come with costs. Taking on debt indefinitely instead of cutting spending or raising taxes is not fiscally desirable or sustainable. You're just spending your kids' money, which is so unfair. It's the opposite of what you're meant to do, and it leads to economies, to zombie economies like those of Greece, Italy, and Japan. That's what's going to happen with your kids if you keep spending your money. They're going to live in economies like those of Greece, Italy, and Japan, stagnated, unable to grow, unable to have real wage gain, and it's frustrating. It's sad. Don't do that. So, how would you handle your country's debt? Let me know in the comments below.